Men of YouTube, what's your creepy girl story? Story 1. I met a girl online. She seemed normal enough, so we ended up going out for a drink. I found out that night that she actually lived an hour away in a rural town, but whatever. Well, we went out, had a drink, then went to go play pool. We drove over in my vehicle, and when we got to the pool hall, she checked her phone and saw she had a text from her ex-buff. She proceeded to cry incessantly. I was trapped. I didn't know what to do, so I offered to take her back to her car. She said she wasn't sure if she could drive, and she asked if I would take her home. I declined, saying it wouldn't be a good idea because A. Her car was like a mile away. B. She lived an hour away. C. How in the hell did she plan to get to her car the next day? So she agrees for the night to end, all the while apologizing vigorously. The next day, she texts me, apologizes, and offers to buy me lunch. She seemed all right when we were getting to know each other, and I was bored, so I figured what the hell, and gave her another shot. She brought her kids to lunch. When I saw them get out of the car, I texted her and said that it wasn't okay for me to meet them. She became irate and said her sitter canceled at the last minute. Even though the drive was an hour long from her house, she didn't find it important to ask if it would be weird for her kids to come. It was at that point that I stated I was no longer interested. Now for the creepy part. 2 days later, she texted me, but I didn't respond. She kept at it and kept asking if I wanted to go out the next weekend. After multiple texts, I messaged her and said I wasn't interested and I had plans to take my friend out for her birthday. This resulted in even more irate messaging about how she wasn't comfortable with me going out with other girls and so forth. This resulted in her getting blocked. Turns out she took a guess on where we would go, since there was only one nightclub in the town, and she showed up. I had to tell the birthday girl that I was leaving and to call me when she was ready to go. My night was ruined. Birthday girl got home okay, in case you're wondering. But wait, there's more. A couple of weeks after that, there was an ice storm, and the power had gone out in the area. I ended up going over to a friend's house to hang out since they had a generator. We were playing cards and enjoying ourselves. Suddenly, I get a text from a number I didn't recognize. Are you all right? I'm really worried, the message read. I'm fine. Who is this? I replied. It's creepy girl, she responded. I ignored it and put my phone down. The next message sent chills down my spine. I'm really worried. I'm standing outside your house and all the lights are off. Are you sure you're ok? She had never been to my house and I had never given her my last name. My final message before blocking her involved not contacting me or I'd call the police. It turns out she was a secretary or some shit for a police department, and she ran my tag to find out where I lived. Drove over an hour to my house in the midst of an ice storm, then got a new number so she could check up on me. Story 2. I was at a friend's birthday party for her dog, probably just an excuse to have people over and get drunk. And another friend, let's call her M, is also there. I had known M for a couple of years, but I only really ever see her a couple of times a year. She is very drunk and also very married. Her husband was also at the same party. At one point in the night, she asks me if I have a girlfriend. I did not. If I am looking for a girlfriend, where I've been looking for a girlfriend, etc. Then she says that I had been looking in all the wrong places and that, if I wanted a good girl, I should let her know. During this conversation, she also kept trying to grab my hand, and so at one point I made sure to always be holding a handful of mini pretzels in both of my hands as a sort of excuse to not be able to hold hands. I can't hold hands if I am holding pretzels. Logic. Then finally she says, I like you. I really like you. Unlike ok. This repeats for a while until she says, stop saying ok. It makes me feel like you think I'm bullshitting. Then she keeps following me around the room and keeps trying to make me dance with her until I leave. Her husband was pretty much always in the same room as us, no more than a few feet away while this was all happening. Thought I was crazy and imagining it all until another friend asked me on the same night as we were leaving, "Was M trying to hit on you?" Story 3. I've got two. First one was when I was 15. I was walking past my school and about to cross the road when a trio of drunk women in their 40s or 50s started hassling me about how good I looked, pressing me against the wall and surrounding me so that I couldn't get out and holding me back while they copped feelings. Not a fun experience, especially when you can't even tell people about it or how creeped out it's left you, because as a guy you should somehow be proud when women 3 times your age are grabbing your cock through your trousers against your will. The other one was about 4 years ago. I was 22 and asked a girl I'd met out. She seemed nice at first. Met her in a little cafe while I was waiting to meet some friends, and we got talking about Pokemon and some other stuff for 20 or 30 minutes before adding each other on Facebook. Only weird thing was that in that time, she told me she'd been raped by her ex. I thought maybe she was just being open about it as a way of dealing with the trauma, so I let it slide and messaged her a bit later to see if she'd be interested in a date. She told me that she already had a boyfriend, but that she'd love to hang out as friends, which was fair enough, so I agreed to that, and we met up a few days later. She brought her boyfriend with her, which I expected. I got the sense he wasn't too comfortable with me, which I can understand, but what threw me was she also brought her ex. I can't 100% say it was the same ex she'd mentioned, but he really gave off that vibe with the way he talked and behaved around her. She kept on talking about dead babies and abortions obsessively as well. You couldn't change the subject at all. Creeped me the hell out, so I just sat there with a smile and acted civil while internally going, "Please don't kill me." And I haven't spoken to her since. Story 4. Not a guy myself, but one I dated had a couple fun stories. One was a girl he got set up with by friends on a blind date. As they went out to dinner, they passed a jewelry store, and she insisted on going in so they could pick out rings for when they get engaged. He paid for dinner and noped right out. The second one went better until he took her back to her place, where she went to the kitchen, pulled a nice big, sharp chef's knife, and told him he was staying the night. He said, "I did what any red-blooded American male would do." Agreed, but said I needed to go to the bathroom, where I promptly crawled out the window and never saw her again. Story 5. I had a friend who went absolutely crazy after her boyfriend broke up with her. Cutting, trying to force him to get back together, getting him kicked out of the group to isolate him only for it to backfire and throw a fit, etc. And that was only freshman year. When he started dating another girl from our group senior year, she pretended to be cool, only to lie to the girl and try and convince her to break up with him because he was definitely texting her last night. Oh, and also he told her he hated her and that she was ugly and that he actually loved her, crazy girl, and was only with the new girl to make her jealous. Many other things happened too. Story 6. I've had a couple semi-stalkerish women who creeped on me, which is weird because I'm not even good looking, but my favorite creepy girl story was just a one-off funny moment. When I was 22, I was hanging out with a couple friends just grilling and drinking when one of them was suddenly like, "Do you guys want to go to a costume party?" Naturally, we were like, yes. So we slapped together some quick costumes and hopped in an Uber. We showed up to this place, and it was less a costume party and more 6 people in an apartment wearing costumes, but there was beer and a dog, so I was happy. Anyway, we spend the evening playing board games with this group of people who seem just as confused as we are. The entire night, there's this one girl who's sitting next to me on the couch, but she hasn't said a single word. Not one. I don't think much of it. Some people are shy. It's whatever. But then, during a lull in the party, out of nowhere, she gets closer to me, looks me dead in the eye, and whispers, "I like blood." Then shifts back to her spot like nothing happened. I turned to my friend and was just like, "We have to leave." I still think about that night sometimes. Story 7. This was, thankfully, an online-only interaction. It started innocently enough with this random person asking me questions about my religious beliefs on Twitter. I was active on Twitter then and was more than happy to talk about my religious beliefs in an informative manner, never a trying to convert you or this is the only right way to live manner. The conversation quickly turned weird, though, as she began asking if I thought that people who were lying about who they were should admit to their sins. I stopped replying. That's when things really went south. She began harassing me at all hours of the day on Twitter. This spread to comments on my blog and emails, sent via a comment form on my blog. They were erratic and hard to make out, but I found other people she had stalked/harassed and pieced together what this was all about. A few years prior, she had a beef with a guy who lives in New Zealand. He cut off contact, but she began contacting his family, friends, and boss to tell them that he did bad things to children. I'm not going to spell it out, but it was sexually based. Now he works in a school, so this charge could end his career. Luckily, he warned his boss, and they ignored the charges. Of course, it helped that her proof was that God told her. Did I forget to mention that she claims she's a prophet of God, and that he literally talks to her to tell her bad things people do? Because that's exactly what she claims. And good luck arguing with, God told me you're guilty. Who's she going to believe? Your mountain of evidence, or the voice of God in her head? Anyway, she found me online and came to the conclusion that I was really a fake identity for a New Zealand guy. Her evidence: we both enjoyed photography. I guess all photos posted online are really only done by me. No wonder I never have free time. As I said before, arguing with her was useless. God told her that I stole the photos of my family from someone else and was pretending to be a married man in New York when I really was. New Zealand guy. Can't argue with God. I tried to contact the police, but she lived in Canada, and there wasn't anything they could do. And others reported her Twitter account, but she always had a few spares ready to hop to. The harassment intensified as she told me that she was going to contact all the companies I did business with under my blog and tell them of my crimes. Same as the New Zealand guy, since we were the same person in her mind. I had to warn a few people preemptively just in case. She also threatened to contact the local police on me, but luckily she didn't know where I lived exactly. One reason why I don't post my exact location online. She also posted threats to my wife's blog. This continued off and on for a year or so. She'd moved to another target. We'd warned said target, and they'd block her. She then claimed that we were part of some Uber hacking group that hacked into everyone's Twitter account to force them to block her when they really all agreed with her. This also extended to police departments. We apparently hacked the police to make her complaints vanish after she was personally told that they would arrest us. Neither the hacking nor the personally told they would arrest us ever actually happened, of course. Eventually, I found her IP address and hatched a plan to block her from my website. I edited my site so that she would get a 404-page not found error if she tried to visit my page, while everyone else would get the normal site. Being a web developer is handy at times. She began lauding on Twitter her success at taking me offline. She's still online and bothering people. Boy George and the head of Firefox are among her past targets. She's left me alone for years, though. I've since stopped blogging due to life, not her, and cut back the Twitter use, so I don't think she'll focus on me again. I don't even wish for her to be arrested, but to get the psychiatric care that she so obviously needs. Story 8. It was my ex-girlfriend. I didn't realize she was creepy until I tried to end it and failed. First few times were my fault for being weak-willed, dumb, all that stuff. She offered me sex or something else, or just treated me kindly for a while. And I thought things can be okay again. And I resumed the relationship. At some point I actually learned my lesson though, but it was at that point I realized she was actually my crazy ex. And it was sad. The stories are many and crazy, but long and short of it is, she told everyone we were together more than a year after I had really ended it. She enrolled at my university, giving up her dream of a different school she'd always wanted to go to, and actually got into, just so she could cross paths with me. Enrolled in a class I was teaching a lab for without me knowing. Showed up randomly at my parents' house. Told them we were still together. It worked the first time. Story 9. Dated a girl who was close with her cousin. I slowly learned everyone hated her cousin, and they were afraid to tell me to avoid the girl/cousin combo, because it was no good. Kept dating the girl, and my cousin started to be around more. It was fine at first, and then the lying started. Never in my life had I met a compulsive liar before, so I couldn't believe that no one was saying anything when this girl blatantly lied. Crazy lies, insane lies that made no sense. Non-stop, constant, really weird lies. I once fell out of an airplane-level lies. It got worse. I told the girl I don't want to be around my cousin anymore. The girl understands. My cousin gets my number and then calls/texts me saying she just drove by my friend's house, and the girl was there. She's cheating on me, cousin says. My cousin lives 45 minutes away and would never be driving near my friend's house. I tell her never to communicate with me again. She says, but I thought we were friends. Block number. Dumped girl.